Okay, so how many of us have changed in the last 20 years? How many of us have evolved? How many of us would say we were a different person? I would. Okay, and so how many of us, when you think back over the last 20 years, remember doing something a little bit stupid? I do. Before I share, gone are the days, but even still. I remember getting incredibly drunk, underage, and alone at a drum and bass rave. I made an absolute fool of myself. It was dangerous and it was risky, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. The fact is, I'm choosing to share that with you. I know what it means to share that with you. It could have stayed as my little secret. The only reason you know is because I'm choosing to tell you. But this isn't always the case these days. Mistakes, errors of judgment are being captured and shared online. They're forming the foundations of our children's digital footprints, and they're lurking in the shadows of those footprints, sometimes coming back out to bite. So what exactly do I mean? Whether it's on a social media platform or maybe as part of a game, children are feeling the negative consequences of being online. And it's not just affecting a minority, the impact is significant. To put this into context, 72% of children worldwide have experienced a cyber threat. That's a huge number of kids. So let's dig a little deeper and focus just on the UK. From March 2022 to March 2023, there were 6,350 recorded cases of sexual communication online with a child. Since 2020, there have been 8,000 child victims of cybercrime. Over the last 6 years, there have been 34,000 recorded instances of online grooming of a minor. This number is the same as the population of Gibraltar. And in the last year, there have been 847,000 cases of online bullying of a child. That number is roughly 10 times the capacity of Wembley Stadium. These numbers are unacceptable. These metrics hurt, but they are very, very real. So why do we let it happen? Why do we let our children step a foot online? Well, it can be for lots of different reasons. Maybe it was pressure from our kids, pressure from other families. Maybe it started off as a maths app to do a bit of homework and it turned into social media. Maybe we empowered them with a device just so we could get that minute's peace. So we could clean the bathroom, so we could finish that piece of work, so we could have that cup of tea. Trust me, I definitely get it. But these statistics are happening because children have an online presence which can be exploited. We're empowering them to be in a virtual space where they don't always understand the risks, dangers, and consequences, and where they may not be developmentally ready to handle having such a presence. Now, I know there's going to be adults, parents out there saying, look, my kids are fine, nothing's going to happen. But the fact is, it could. From my role in human intelligence, I know there are threat actors targeting children. It is real. It's that real. You can see here an example of a sextortion handbook aimed at kids. It tells the threat actor where they can find their child victims, what to say, how to manipulate them. It tells the threat actor it will make them better, stronger, that they could make a lot of money. This exists and this is used. So I've shown you statistics, I've shown you an example, what might online threats actually look and feel like for a child. So there are several which overlap between both adults and kids. The two to call out here are social engineering and fraud. Social engineering is where someone is tricked into spreading malware, into giving access to something, or into sharing personal information. If we relate that to a child, it could be them thinking they're signing up to the latest gaming newsletter with maybe some tips and tricks, and actually all they've done is give their name, date of birth, and address to a threat actor for them to go off and use. Fraud, or internet fraud, is in essence where someone is scammed out of money. So think fake concert tickets, fake beauty products, fake gaming coins, that kind of stuff. The three we're seeing impact children more and more are sextortion, manipulation, and online bullying. Sextortion, or to sexually extort, is where a threat actor befriends a child. Maybe they pretend to be a love interest, and they convince them to share compromising images of themselves. They then use those images to blackmail the victim. Manipulation is, again, where a threat actor befriends a child, but in this case encourages them to do something they wouldn't normally do, typically antisocial behavior. This could be anything from setting fire to something, to pranking a neighbor, right the way through to harming themselves or to harming others. And finally up there you have online bullying, to be cruel to someone, to call them names, to pick on them, things that some of us may have seen or even experienced in the school playground is now happening online. This one's particularly tricky because it's happening in our homes, in our kids' bedrooms, a place where they go to feel safe and to rest. So these are some of the core threats. Worst case scenario, how bad could it actually get? This is Ryan. Ryan was 17 years old, a Boy Scout from California. Ryan was tricked into sharing naked images of himself. The sextorter then told Ryan he'd share them with all his family and friends unless he paid up. Ryan was scared and he didn't know what to do. So he made the ultimate sacrifice and he took his own life. In his last message, he said he was just too embarrassed. This is Amy. She was nicknamed Dolly by her parents because of her doll-like features. You can see them, right? Dolly was 14 years old, a grade A student from Australia. Dolly was online bullied. They were so incredibly cruel to her. She fought for so long and she tried her absolute best, but she just couldn't cope anymore. So she took her own life. This is Murray. Murray was 16 years old and from Dunblane. He loved his local football team, Stirling Albion, and he was really looking forward to Christmas. Murray was sextorted, tricked in the cruelest of ways. He was scared. He didn't know where to turn or what to do. So in December 2023, he took his own life. These are the online victims of online threats. It won't always get to this extreme, but this is the risk, and this is the loss. It's important we recognise that consequences can be delayed. Mistakes as a child can come back to bite as an adult. I want to caveat, I'm not saying what any of these people have done is right, but they serve as a good example for this talk. First up there you have George Fensham, who shot to fame on Love Island UK when old, inappropriate posts were found. His reputation was destroyed. He didn't realise how posts as a child would impact him as an adult. Next up there you have Jack Maynard, celebrity vlogger who was living his career dream in the I'm a Celebrity jungle when, again, old, inappropriate posts were found. He left the jungle. He said he felt ashamed, but it was too late. The damage was already done. Finally up there, you have James Gunn, who lost his dream job as director of Guardians of the Galaxy again when old, inappropriate posts were found. At this point, they were well over 10 years old, but it didn't matter. He still lost his job. And this isn't just happening to celebrities, this is happening to everyday folk. Just last week, I heard about a teacher who lost their job when old, compromising photos from their university days were found. It's important we recognise that we grow up and we change and we evolve, but our childhood digital footprint remains searchable and unchanged. We can see how these footprints can damage lives, and in some cases, even take them. I'm a mum, and this terrifies me. I don't want my children to be victims. On one hand, I want to take away all their technology, give my daughter a typewriter and become a digital recluse. But that just isn't feasible. Technology is everywhere. It is the future. And at some point, my children will create digital footprints. So the next best thing is to be ready. So what do we need to do? For a child to be cyber conscious, it's more than the sole responsibility of a lone parent. They say it takes a village, right? At the highest possible level for every single child, we need to be assessing, can they be accountable to their digital footprint? Do they understand the risks, dangers, and consequences of being online, and do they know where to get help? We need to get them to a point where they can answer all of those questions, and if they can't, we delay access. We can support this in two main ways: in protection, so keeping them initially safe, and in response, by identifying when badness has happened and reacting to it. So starting with protection, there's lots of social movements rallying support at the moment to keep children safe online, make sure they have age-appropriate access, and that they can be accountable to their digital footprint. One gaining huge traction is smartphone-free childhood. They believe no child needs a smartphone until they are at least 14 years old. They're empowering parents to say no and to delay access to that technology type. They've launched to huge success in the UK, US, and Canada. And there's lots of other similar global movements like Turn Down Tech New Zealand and Screen Wise Child UAE. Making sure children have age-appropriate access and delaying access to certain technology types is becoming a global, normalized conversation, and one we should all be a part of. Another way to protect is through learned behaviors. If we want our children to be cyber conscious, cyber safe, and they need to see it in how we behave. We teach them how to eat, how to drink, how to dress. So why are we not proactively teaching them how to be safe online? I'm talking strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, showing how you should and should not behave in online spaces. We need to embody that in the day-to-day if we want our children to do the same. But we make mistakes, right? And if we can make mistakes, so can our kids. So we need to be ready for that. There are two ways to identify a threat. One is through seeing it, and one is through hearing it. You can see a threat through strong monitoring, through parental controls, through notifications or alerts that badness has happened. But how do you hear a threat? You hear a threat because your child tells you. Because they love you, they trust you, they know you have their back, and they know that there's no judgment. But how do you get to that point? In my opinion, through open, honest conversations. Talk about what worries you about them being online or their online presence. Talk about all the amazing opportunities and spaces that come with being online. Talk about the dangers, risks, and consequences. Talk about things that have happened to you, but show that you're still here and you're okay. Then, if they tell you something has happened, there's lots of incredible organisations out there ready to support you both. I've pulled together a list of resources which you can access via this QR code. But in all honesty, I hope you never have to use any of them. We must keep our children safe online. We must acknowledge they're creating digital footprints earlier than ever before. We must acknowledge there are dangers, risks, and consequences that come with being online. The solution lies in protection, by making cyber-conscious choices for our individual families and our individual children. And in response, by being there in good and bad times. No judgment, just love. Tonight, when you're done, raise a glass to the children that we lost. But be grateful for the opportunity that we've been given to learn and to protect our own. Thank you for the gift of your time.